All right, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to briefly then go over this technology. As the name implies, it's a gel that goes into the oral cavity of the mouth. I'll start by just recognizing some of the researchers that have been involved in this. The lead researcher, Elnaz Sadeghi, she graduated with a master's, UNM Biomedical Engineering, a couple of years ago. And then I've had quite a few different students coming in, working on this, filling in the gaps, if you like, particularly some from my old workplace, actually, in the UK, University of Bath. I have pharmacy students come in annually, and they've been able to work on this. In terms of funding, this has principally been funded by the College of Pharmacy after I started here in 2012. And I've carried on just using unrestricted funding for this. So there's no real company or big grant involved in this project at this time. So the innovation here really is that it uses an active gelling aid, as I call it, to spontaneously form a gel in the mouth at 37 degrees. So if you can imagine spraying a liquid in the mouth, so it's very low viscosity like water, can be sprayed anywhere, covers a surface, and then it would form a gel rapidly. Now, I call this an active gelling aid because in my examples, as you see, I use sodium fluoride, which is the fluoride ion is highly electronegative and it induces this gelling. Fluoride is also good for teeth enamel as well, or remineralization of teeth. And so this really is the innovation here, that we might be able to target the remineralization of teeth in patients that need it, using a novel gel formulation. So how does this work then? Well, the polymer that I use is known as hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose. It's well known in the pharmaceutical industry. It's used in oral tablets, been used for decades, since the 1950s even. And this phenomenon of thermal gelation has been well known. We start with a liquid of water with some of this polymer dissolved in it, as you can see on the left-hand side of my diagram here. We then at a high temperature. Now, this has got to be greater than 70 degrees. So it's very high. And what that does is it disrupts this water away from these strands, which are hydrophobic parts of the polymer. So the water moves away from the polymer at greater than 70 degrees. And then what we're able to do, what happens is, these hydrophobic components are attracted to each other because the water's banished away by this high temperature. And so we have the polymer chains forming a structure, and that structure is a viscoelastic gel. So it's essentially, viscoelastic's a fancy name for something that is like Jello, essentially. It deforms and comes back as you take the force off of it, but it has this gel property, so it's extremely viscous. And this is completely reversible. If we cool it down, it'll go back to its original state. So this high temperature has been well known in the industry before, and it's been exploited for certain pharmaceutical manufacturing processes. But greater than 70 degrees, I think you'll agree, is very warm, and we wouldn't want to apply this in the oral cavity of a patient. So what I've done then, if we add a gelling aid, this is also well known, we can use a much lower temperature. And the temperature in question depends on how much gelling aid we put in there and what type of gelling aid it is. Now, there isn't any previous work in the literature that specifically uses sodium fluoride as a gelling aid. And fluoride, as I said, is highly electronegative. So it steals the water away. You can see that there's this ordered stealing of the water with the sodium ions and the fluoride ions. And what that does is we get the same gelation occurring, a viscoelastic gel form, but it has sodium fluoride entrapped within it. And the beauty of this is also is reversible, but we can add so much sodium fluoride that we actually reduce the temperature that it gels at to below body temperature, or 37 degrees as the cutoff. And this is great now, because if we spray this in the mouth, we could have it gelling immediately. So the current technologies out there, you'll recognize these ones on the left pretty much. Maybe not so much the foam for kids, but that's to encourage them to use mouthwash. Generally, we use this fluoride mouthwash, put it in our mouth, try and keep it there for a minute, which I'll tell you is hard, and I use mouthwash every evening. But it's transitory at best. A minute is not a long time to expose your teeth to fluoride ions to induce remineralization. The only good thing about this is if you do it every day. It's sort of helpful over a long, long period of time. Now, in the dentist, if you go in, they'll put this fluoride varnish on, and that's pretty good. That stays there for a long time. Tastes nasty. The one I have tastes like bananas. Not great. Or there's this fluoride gel, which is already gelled, and it's put in one of these cups, and then these gum trays, sorry, and then placed in the mouth. Both are inconvenient. These require visits to the dentist. So this is already viscous, bear in mind, and we'll come back to that in a moment. These ones are transitory, so they're really no good from the get-go. They're just not effective in a short space of time. It takes years for any effect of these, and you're demineralizing when you're not having fluoride on there. So the current technologies from the left, these already viscous ones, can be applied. And you can see here, if we zoom into the tooth surface, we're going to have this viscous liquid miss areas of the tooth that need mineralization, essentially. So I've put this little asterisk here. There's a gap there. And this happens with all viscous liquids when you try and apply them to a surface, particularly with this fluoride varnish, which is waxy. It's going to leave a gap. And you're going to have inconsistent exposure over the tooth. So poor surface contact. So we can say that these are not very good. And this technology that I'm proposing goes on as a liquid. And so since it goes on as a liquid, it has very low viscosity, it provides very, very good surface contact. It then gels and stays there. So not only has it provided great surface contact, it's going to stay there for a long period of time and provide that intimate contact that we're looking for. So just as a potential then for the market, we know that long-term remineralization is next to impossible at home. It requires frequent dental visits using those outdated technologies such as gum trays or the nasty varnish waxy substance that's put on. So those are really impractical to go there every day. Let's put it that way. There's a real potential for at-home remineralization here. And so we also know that good oral health mitigates a whole variety of health problems in individuals. So what starts in the mouth can actually have benefits for the entire body. So a liquid that turns into a gel could be used as a platform for many different actives as well. I mentioned sodium fluoride here for remineralization. But if you think about other dental diseases, such as periodontal pockets that form due to periodontitis, we could apply a gel in a liquid that goes in as a liquid to gel in those pockets and slowly release drug in that area and really have a great benefit for the patient. Again, minimizing invasive techniques that are outdated at the dentist. Some data I want to show you is with sodium fluoride that I used. We can see if you compare it to published sodium chloride in terms of a gelling agent, we have a much steeper slope with different concentrations of sodium fluoride. That means this material, the sodium fluoride, is fantastic at causing gelation at low temperatures. And that's really what we're wanting. And you can see I've marked on here at 37 degrees. It takes about 1.6% sodium fluoride in the formulation to gel it. So that could be well tolerated orally, I believe. In terms of drug release or active release, for sodium fluoride release, we can see that on the left-hand side, I'm showing a liquid because this was performed at 30 degrees, so it didn't gel. We see rapid release of the sodium fluoride in about 40 minutes from the liquid completely mixing. If we look at the polymer solution at 37 degrees where it's had a chance to gel, it takes about 3 times as long just in this little test to release that fluoride completely. So the long-term exposure potential is there. The current status of this is that I still have ongoing experiments. I still have students coming in that are working on this. One of the next steps is to look at remineralization of tooth enamel using extracted teeth to watch what happens with exposure to fluoride. We have a dissolution model, which is planned to use a 3D printed design. So the saliva turnover in the mouth is only about 5 mils a minute or less. The pH is less than 7. And we would look at how quickly this fluoride comes off over a period of time, or other drugs. There's adhesion studies to think of as well. We have an adhesion machine where we can pull gels off of surfaces. So I'd look at gum, tooth, buccal or sublingual areas potentially for other applications. I'm thinking maybe canker sores as well is another application in those areas. Could spray something on and it would form a nice gel over the surface to protect it during recovery. And different gelling aid combinations to provide different base gels with different polymers. So that's the current status. There's a little bit of work ongoing, but really we've found out that the fluoride is working. And that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully that wasn't too long.
Thank you, Jason. Is there any questions there? I have one. Do you have any idea how long it would last and kind of what it would feel like in the patient? Because I know sometimes you get stuff on your teeth that feels all funky and weird.
Right. So the good thing about this is that it's a hydrophilic agent. So it's naturally going to be a better feel in the mouth than the waxy varnish that's put on the teeth. So it wouldn't last as long as the waxy varnish for sure, but a daily use of this would last much longer than a mouthwash, for example. So I've already shown that it's 3 times, it lasts 3 times longer in a beaker system, which has got lots of water. If you think there's only 5 mils of saliva going through the mouth every minute compared to a large 300 milliliter beaker we had, this probably lasts a lot longer than the 120 minutes that we've got. And the place you want mineralization the most is in the gaps between the teeth and below the gum line. And this really has less saliva exposure than the rest of the tooth as well.